I think whatever I say, you're going to try and get me to sing.
I'm not that mean. Chase, thank you so much for being with us today. We're grateful that you took the opportunity to sit down with us and talk to us a little bit about entrepreneurship. So before we get started, we want to know a little bit about you.
I'm Chase Hunsaker. I own a company called Monify or Monify Merchant Solutions. We provide point-of-sale equipment, payment processing, safes, armored car service, pretty much anything to do with cash or getting paid. We manage that for our clients. We work with small, medium-sized businesses primarily, and a few large businesses, 500 plus employee type stuff, or 100 locations also, right? But I'd say the majority is small, medium-sized businesses that we service, and we keep them up and running.
Very cool. And that's exactly what you thought you were going to be doing when you were college age, right?
So it's funny I'd say that. I always knew I was going to be in business, and I knew I wanted to own my own business. Maybe not knowing exactly what that would look like, because that's hard to know when you're in college and trying to just get through and figure out what makes sense. And so I knew it was either I was going to figure something out to own myself, or I was going to get into sales, and then proceed into my own brokerage firm or something like that. But so I was for my first degree at Westminster University, back then it was Westminster College, it was 05 to 08. And 2008 was a horrible time to graduate college, right? And so, or to go look for a job rather. The graduating college part doesn't matter, but getting a job, right? And most of the people in my group of friends, they were ending up working at, Foot Locker at the mall, and these jobs that we thought would be very much past. And I was thinking I was going to get into some kind of professional sales role, medical device sales, something like that. And all of a sudden you realize, these jobs that 3 years ago someone out of college was qualifying for, you're now competing with guys that have 10 years experience and a graduate degree. So it sets everyone back. So from that point, I started picking up consulting work because I have a background in convenience stores and grocery stores and things like that, family-owned businesses. I picked up consulting work to help a few different entities program their new point-of-sale equipment, right? They just didn't have the expertise or the manpower to do it themselves. So I'd go in, program out, load all their products, teach their people how to use it, and just kind of oversee that whole program. And from there, I started realizing, hey, there's more I can do. We can offer point-of-sale equipment. Back then, it was a little bit different. It's been a few years. This is before your fully integrated point-of-sale and payment solutions. But that's when you realize, hey, we can do point-of-sale, we can do payments, we can offer ATMs and these different things. And there's been product lines that have came and gone, but it's more of out of requirement, finding products where it's like, hey, this is products we understand, it's products we can monetize, and we can form lasting relationships with customers, because this is not a single sell opportunity. This is, hey, we're here for them when there's a problem, and we're going to help them. And so from there, it's just kind of grown into what it is now.
So what was it that made you say, I want to own my own business? What was it about owning your own business that you were like?
So owning your own business is the truth of it is you're probably going to work more on your own business than you would for someone else. For me, I would rather be responsible to myself and my customers than to have some boss telling me what I'm going to do, or being in an office from 9 to 5. I can't think of anything worse than doing that. But then on the flip side, I'll work from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then I'll go home and be with my wife and kids and put them to bed at 10. And then at 10, I'm going to start doing paperwork and different stuff. So I work a lot more hours, but it's on my terms. If I want to knock off and go home and mow my lawn, I can do that. If I want to come here and do speak with you folks. I get to do that. I work it into my own schedule. But that doesn't change the fact that accountability still exists, right? Instead of having 4 bosses above you telling you what to do and all this different stuff, I have my customers. I still have regulatory relationships with banks and the government and things like that we're still required to do certain things. But day to day, hey, we get to make our own decision. And hey, if things come up and say a customer has an emergency, I can choose to go at 11 o'clock at night and take care of that so I'm not bugged the next day. You don't get to make those decisions so much depending on roles that you might choose to go on, right? But it's more of, hey, I like to do my own thing.
Yeah. It sounds like the boundaries are almost flipped from a traditional job. The boundaries of a traditional job, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, that you clock out, you're good, you're done. Whereas with an entrepreneur, you can spend a lot of time, anytime during your waking hours, and maneuver that, but you're still beholden to somebody. It's the customer, the client, the business relationships you have.
The bank, all these places
are the de facto bosses. They don't tell you what to do or how to do it, but they need you to still do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can't hold yourself accountable and self-motivate, it may not be the right thing to do for you. If you can't feel that little bit of desperation in your stomach and say, I got to get moving, then hey, clocking in and out. And there's nothing wrong with that because we have employees, we're adding more employees. I wouldn't want that to. I'm very appreciative of all these people, but for me personally, it's like, hey, this is what's best for us, and for my family and the way we want to do things, and if you're doing it right, you should be growing your wealth overall, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean you're taking money home at this week or this month or this year, but if you're doing it right, when it's all said and done and you've created the right business type and you've created the value in that business, when the day comes to sell or to merge or whatever that looks like, you should get a payout, right? You should see some of those unrealized gains that you don't get when you are self-employed. Sometimes you're the most expensive employee and sometimes you're the cheapest employee. And if you're doing it right, there should be a payoff at the end.
Yeah.
So I got a question then. So you told us what a day typically looks like for you, right? You can create your own schedule. But somebody new, somebody out of college has an idea. What can they expect?
So the first thing is what I'd say is you have to find a product or a service or an opportunity that, one, you can tolerate and that you like, but also is going to have the monetary payoff to be sustainable, right? So first I'd say, but even before that, you break some eggs and figure out what these good opportunities are, because there's some things out there where it's like, oh, you sell this one product that's kind of a hard sell and you're going to make $13 a month per unit residual commission, or it's a small payout. Well, those types of things, they're almost demoralizing because you realize, gosh, for me to like have any measure of life, I need to sell, 1,000 of these a month, or, sign up 1,000 customers or whatever that is. But when you're first starting out, you're going to be the main salesperson for your company, right? And when you're starting with no portfolio and no leads and no connections and no existing customers to give you referrals, it is a grind. And it is more of a mental game. And that's going to turn into a game of attrition because you have to live still, right? So how are you going to afford to live and grind out a new portfolio, right? And I would say this applies to so many business types, the things kind of in the same group of what we do, with payment process, anything recurring revenue, payment processing, payroll, insurance, whether it's health insurance, personal or commercial, or really like commercial real estate, any of these things. Gosh, you have to find the right products, and then you start with 0 customers. And so you have to go and figure out what that value proposition is. And that can be really taxing. And it's a lot of no's. And when you're young, because I started doing this when I was just young, and that can be demoralizing, and that can be hard. And so I'd say, what's the plan to get through that? For me, growing up around small businesses and family-owned businesses, I knew, hey, you have to just start. But it's when you're young, if you can live cheap, live with parents, live with friends, reduce your expenses as much as possible. But the big thing is figure out how you're going to get through the grind, because it's going to be hard. And it's going to be hard for a long time. We're very strong and we have a lot of customers, and there's still days and months where I'm like, gosh, I don't know if are we doing what's right? Are we moving in the right direction? So it's the same idea, but it's different, because it's, hey, now we have resources, we have customers, we have things to lean on. But there's always technology changes. There's always competitive changes. Government regulation in some of these things play a major role. And so it's like, gosh, are they going to, pass a law that significantly alters our business type, right? And so those things are always on my mind. And product differentiation comes in, where it's like, gosh, hey, this is going really well. How can we use this to leverage into another source of income that can sustain us if there's a dramatic change somewhere else? And so what I see when a lot of people are trying to get going, they're maybe sometimes worried about the wrong stuff, right? And it's, oh, hey, I need to have a killer logo. I need to have a killer website. And it's an attempt to overcompensate. And I've been there, and I'm guilty of this also, is I want to look bigger than I really am, because deep down I know that I'm just starting out and I actually don't have a lot to offer because I don't have the experience.
Nobody wants to be the first customer at a brand new company.
That's true.
Right.
And that's why it's usually family or friends.
Right.
Is why, because they're trying to help out. And
so that feeling of wanting to overcompensate that you're saying, it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, I need to look like I've served thousands of people.
Yeah.
And so, but like you're saying, sometimes that leads us to spending too much time and resources and other areas that don't really
on the wrong stuff. And now,
Yeah.
do you need a website? You need a website.
Yeah.
Should you have an email that is customized with a customized domain? That probably is really helpful. And these are things that aren't very expensive. But walking that fine line of, hey, this is professional and this is adequate, versus this is overkill, and people are looking for silver bullets. Mm-hmm. When in reality, it's, hey, get your business card, or get your virtual business card, or, where you tap the phones or whatever. Get your website, get an email, use your cell phone or Google Voice or something cheap. Like, don't spend a lot of money, and get those things organized, because you got to get out and sell, right? If you don't have customers, you spend 90% of your time selling, and the other 10% is administration. And as you gain more customers, those ratios change to where it's like you sell less because you have more administrative work. And that's when you start looking at, okay, hey, if this is the right product and the right value is being created, that's when you can grow and add employees. Or hiring an employee isn't always the thing to do. It's, you find other ways to bring sales in that are easier to manage.
So sorry, just to interject here, as you're growing from start to finish,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had a lot of crises or fires that have popped up. What are some of the biggest crises you face, and how did you overcome them as an entrepreneur?
So the big one is one, and this might be dumb to some people, but especially when we're starting out, we would sign customers where we would sign them. I'm like, gosh, I don't know how we're going to do this. Whether it's like, I don't have the manpower, or I don't have the money to buy equipment, or this or that. And what we'd say is, hey, we would at the very least, hey, get the deal. And let's not shoot the moon too much, right? But let's get the deal, then we'll figure that out. And when you're in the middle of that feels like a crisis, because it kind of is, because you made a commitment to people. And there's one thing, it's like, I don't want to let a single person down. And if you convince them to sign a purchase order, or to sign an agreement, or to sign whatever, like, gosh, I need to come up with, $6,000. And like back then, it's like, well, that was a lot of money. And now it's just like, well, man, I do that daily doing deals, and it's cool because we got past that. For when you're first starting out and you're trying to just win a customer, all too often you'll cut bad deals because you're desperate and you just want some kind of level of success. I get that. And sometimes that works. When you're doing that and it causes you to be losing money, that's almost one of the bigger crises that we can face. I did that. There was a few deals I did. I'm like, gosh, I thought this was going to work out. I thought the math worked, and there's some variable I didn't take into account that way. And so that's when you're starting out, I would watch, because that is a crisis. That is what will put you out of business. Because you do too much of that, and you don't have the backing, then you're out. And for a lot of these things, you're not going to go get investors that are going to give you a good deal for mature business types, like what I'm discussing. And if you do, you're going to give away so much that you lose the benefits of being self-employed. You kind of just took someone's money and bought yourself a job. From my perspective, I feel very fortunate. But through growth, there's ups and downs. You have customers that you think you're going to have for a long term, and then they end up going out of business or usually being acquired, and the acquiring company has a provider already in place, and you're out. And so these are people that you think you can rely on for future revenue, and all of a sudden they're gone, and then you have to. It's like you take 3 steps forward, and you just took 5 back, and then you have to start over again. Those are tough. And so we've found ourselves in positions in earlier years where we would have a subset of customers that percentage-wise, either of revenue or profitability, represented a significant portion of our portfolio. And then they move on for whatever reason, and you're like, gosh, I have bills to pay, I have obligations. For us, it was contractual obligations for minimums. And it's like, we're just struggling to meet our contractual obligations with our suppliers, and that's hard. And for me, it's like, hey, the next morning I get up and I go and I start selling. It's like, hey, we just fell behind. We got to find someone to replace that. That's probably the bigger one, I would say, and that's probably what puts people out of business more often than we realize, is they just can't perform enough for it. In the current environment, I would say technological advancements is probably the big one to keep an eye out for, because you could go all in on a product, and then they could decide to sell out, and they could cut out third-party relationships or outside vendor relationships, and then you're out and you're done, right? And so being ready for that type of stuff. Also in the current market, hey, managing your business so that when you're self-employed, just because there's money in your bank account doesn't mean it's money you should spend for yourself. And case in point right now is a time people should have been saving their money the last several years, because the market in general is soft right now. And so you could have well-known, successful businesses that just go down and out of business and file bankruptcy because they didn't have enough runway to get through. In a larger perspective, is a short-term period. The period of higher interest rates and a soft economy, I would say we're in a recession. Other people would not. It's a short period of time, but if you don't have the runway to get through that, you're going to be looking for a job after.
So one of the things that I've heard you say over and over again is that you need sales skills. You sell,
Yes.
sell.
Yeah.
So would you say that is one of the most important skills that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should have?
Yes. And marketing classes are good and they're important. And I feel like I was good in all my marketing classes. But marketing is different than sales, right? And I don't think there's enough emphasis placed on the interpersonal communication and interaction that takes place in a sales relationship. And if that's something that you're not comfortable with, I don't know how you get off the ground. And it's out there. There's people where it's like, hey, they want to own their own business. They want to do their own thing. They view their skill set more on the operations and management side of stuff. But it's like the biggest cheerleader of a company should be its owner, its president, its CEO. And I would say if you were able to rank that criteria, you would see more often than not that's the case. And so for me, yeah, I think that sales is where it starts. Closely behind that, I would say is accounting. You can't run your own business if you don't know what goes into a P&L statement. You can't run your business if you don't know what goes into a balance sheet. You can, but then you're relying on other people to tell you if you're doing good or not, right? And in those early years, I did everything. I did it all. And you have to be comfortable with that. And even now, I have bookkeepers and I have accountants, and I see them make errors, right? And then you say, hey, you booked this to the wrong account. This is, you expense this out. It's actually an inventory item. Those types of things. You have to be comfortable with that because that's your money, and that's telling you how you're performing. So I'd say sales first, and not far behind that, accounting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's excellent. So I've got a two-part question. The first is, in the startup space, there's tons of big names, right? Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. If you could choose any professional startup partner, who would it be?
And why?
Yeah.
Yeah. To answer a question like that, there's probably a few different ways to answer a question like that. And if the idea is I have an idea and I'm bringing someone in to give me money and to mentor me, I think Jeff Bezos makes a lot of sense. I think in the last 10 years, 15 years, Elon Musk probably is the better individual to take a look at. The majority of his career, from prior to even being part of PayPal, for a company back then that was called X.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
Right? And then he gets into PayPal, which was a major disruptor. And then doing that deal and cashing out and buying into Tesla and what's grown into, if you are in a startup that is going to disrupt, that's a person that's been through it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And they can generate capital based off of who they are and their word. And when you, in a hypothetical world where you would do a deal like that, it's, hey, they may not be throwing in their own money. They might just be helping you go and find money somewhere else and give you expertise. So that's probably the one I would look at if I'm looking at something that's not too disruptive, that's more of, hey, we just need good mentorship. I'd probably look at Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase. I think he probably has his pulse on the business world better than most people. And when it comes to how to manage your business so that a bank wants to work with you, someone like that probably would be better than most.
Very cool. Very cool.
So a lot of our students are deathly afraid of networking. They think, it's out of their comfort zone. For some reason, we don't like to talk to other people. So reflecting on your experience, how important was it to build a professional network to be successful?
It's way important because we so many of our leads and come from referrals, and it comes from because we take care of people. Now, when I was first starting out and when I was in my undergraduate business school classes, I remember we had a speaker come and he said, hey, I just think networking's bullshit, right? And he's kind of an introverted dude. And then he went on to explain that he felt like it wasn't authentic. And I think he was right. A lot of networking in the beginning stages is not authentic. People are just trying to figure out where they belong, what that niche is for them. As I've gotten older, networking has become less taboo, right? I'm more open to it. And a lot of that's because I'm more secure in who my company is and who I am as a professional and as an individual. And so I had a phone call yesterday with a company. You know, they want to be a supplier of ours. I really don't have need for them right now, but I can acknowledge, hey, this is something that we might be able to. It's a relationship worth having, so that if something comes up in the future, I can call them on the phone and say, hey, I need help. Can we collaborate? Or they can reach out to me and say, hey, Chase, you know, we have a situation that's not really a good fit for us. Can you help? And so it's more of going into the idea of not having an expectation of return, like BNI, right? Where you go and they want, you know, it's lead for lead. It's like, well, that's pretty disingenuous.
Yeah.
And there are people with networking. There's people I click with at a personal level that, hey, we have a professional relationship. It's more we just like each other and we stay in touch that way. And there's people where it's like, gosh, we probably see the world very differently, but we can help each other in certain situations, and those are relationships worth maintaining.
And you and you're part of my network,
Yeah.
right? So hopefully we don't expect anything from each other, right?
No.
We just do this because you're part of my network.
Yeah.
I can call you at any time and say, hey, Chase, could you come help me with this?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's, I'm sure my perspectives don't ring true to every person, right? But I think, hey, there's other perspectives out here besides, you know, I need to come up with a crazy startup idea and, you know, go get a bunch of funding and do the tech bro route that is a whole different conversation. But there's so many other ways to be successful and to have a good living and to be a contributing factor to your family and friends and coworkers and colleagues and society in general, right? And so, and this is fun stuff too. So.
Yeah. And just to recap what you were saying, one thing that we really want to emphasize to our students is that networking is ubiquitous. It doesn't really matter what industry, if you're an entrepreneur or a person at a single company, it really is an integral part to career growth and career expansion, either for your business as an entrepreneur or for an individual career trying to make it up the ladder to CEO or whatever it might be. And what that looks like is different based on the industry, based on the circles that you're entering into. But would you agree that networking you can't avoid it?
No, it's the same. It's the same as if you can't sell. If you can't sell, what jobs do you qualify for? And it doesn't mean, I'm not talking about sales jobs. If you can't talk to people, where do we put you?
Yeah.
Where do you go? Right? And I recognize that I probably am more outspoken. I'm probably really truly more of an introvert. I don't know. We can analyze this after. But you have to be outspoken. And I have those moments of where I want to be left alone and I just want my time. But when you walk through that door, whatever that door it represents, you have to be on and you have to be okay to talk to people. And so if you don't want to network, if you don't want to represent yourself positively to other people, where do you go? Like, you can't be an auditor. You still got to talk to people as an auditor. And so what I would say in hindsight, start finding ways to meet new people early and just start talking about yourself and what you do and what you hope to do, you know, where you'd like to end up. And that could even just be things here. You know, I'm sure the business school puts on social events and mixers and hey, come see this guest speaker and those types of things.
Chase, you have no idea how happy we are that you said that. We swear we did not tell him to say that, because we have 2 to 3 really big assignments in 1890 that are about getting involved, about going to these events and building a peer network, because our students are sitting across from 40,000 other peer professionals at this university. And if you in the School of Business, if you're creating a robust 200 to 300 connections while you're here, and then that amplifies out. So thank you for saying that. That was excellent.
Now the other thing I'd say is, hey, when guest speakers come, use those opportunities. If it's someone that interests you, go and hear what they have to say. And if you get a chance and you have questions to ask, go ask them. Go run them down. Just say, hey, I have a question for you.
So for our students, how should they network out, reach out to you?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Chase Hunsaker. Send me a message.
Looks like you.
Yeah, it looks like me. Yeah.
Some people do not have pictures that look like themselves. It's like dating profile pics
Yeah.
maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah. No, it's a bald Chase, but I never really had good hair anyway.
I know. I was like 25 when mine started fleeing from me, my hair.
Yeah, it's fine. I got used to it. Cutting my hair is cheap now. So that's what I'd say. On the networking side, if there's something that interests people, go and just find anyone you can talk to understand what that real life looks like, right? And how can this be applicable to what you want to do? Because you might realize, oh, it sounds awesome to work for Goldman Sachs. And I know they have a big presence in the state, and we're grateful for them to be here. But hey, go find out what it means to work for them out of college. And is that something you are interested in? Go talk to some guys that did their 3 years and then moved on somewhere else. Because it sounds awesome, but it's taxing. Or hey, insurance sales sounds boring. Well, go talk to some people and see what that actually looks like. A lot of these places would give you an internship just for showing interest, right? And when I was at Westminster, I was in a professional sales class. We had guest speakers coming all the time, and I recall there was a guy came and they owned a natural gas pipeline and bought and sold natural gas to run through the pipeline. And growing up around gas stations and truck stops and things like that, I had just a little bit of information that he wasn't expecting from a college class, right, in Westminster. And the professor came to me after and said, hey, this guy has offered you an internship. Would you be interested? And I was dumb, because back then I owned my own business then, different than what I do now. This is before 2008. He said, no, I'm really committed here. I don't know. I'd have to move to Portland. And I said, I just don't know how I can make that swing. I just don't know how I can make that work. That's probably my fault. I probably missed an opportunity there. But you just don't know where those things come out. Because people are looking for young talent or new talent. Yeah. Because you can't have in the small, here's the real opportunity. This is a good one. This is a really good one. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a business owner, learn as much as you can about running businesses. Learn what you want to do. And then go look for those business types owned by people who are getting close to retirement that don't have any
Succession plans.
Yeah. That's the real next big opportunity for people. And you have to you have to come up with money to buy it. You might have to work a deal with them for owner financing or something like that. That's probably the next big thing. That's where I would tell people, hey, that's probably a really good source right there.
Awesome. But before we wrap this up, I have to know, if your friends and family's lives were on the line and you had to sing one karaoke song to save their lives, what song would it be and why?
I don't know, because I think whatever I say, you're going to try and get me to sing.
I'm not that mean.
Maybe something from ABBA.
Oh, yes!
Like if I have to do it, right?
I just went and saw ABBA Voyage in London. So, okay, which one though? Come on.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Do you have a song in mind? What are we singing, Chase?
I don't know. Dancing Queen.
Okay.
Mamma Mia, here I go again. Yeah.
Awesome.
So amazing.
Chase, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to connect with Chase Hunsaker, LinkedIn, he does respond to his LinkedIn messages. I can tell you that. reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.